Nera rubbed her manipulating appendages together excitedly as she skittered down the halls of the Spock station. Her sectoid legs made soft tip-taps as they landed on the stainless steel floor. Her two large emerald compound eyes drank in all the information around her as she dodged another Krier, their lobster-like abdomens scraping against one another. They raised their mantis-like bladed arms in an annoyed stance as she wiggled her antenna back at them in apology. She was in too much of a hurry to offer a proper apology. The new species was here to look at her work, and she needed to be prepared. Her mandibles clicked together as she thought about the new members of the galactic stage. Not unlike the Vero, they were mammalian. However, they were much smaller, the tops of their furry heads barely reaching her people's lower stomach, right at the center of her grasping appendages. And yet, she had heard that they were so dense that a warrior couldn't so much as budge them running full tilt. It was perplexing until she had heard that they had hailed from a Category 13 death world, with 4.5 times the gravity of their own home world, a highest rating any planet that harbors sentient life had ever gotten. Sure, there was the NOA who hailed from the Category 8 death world, but they were still relatively normal. In fact, one of her colleagues had mentioned that their scientists had told them if their gravity was any higher, they would not have made it off their planet, and that it was difficult as it was to leave the atmosphere. But that wasn't the strangest thing about them. Nera had gotten her manipulators on a pamphlet describing their anatomy, something all the other members of the galactic community had reluctantly shared only after many rotations. Their anatomy was overbuilt, would be her descriptor. They had one head, a common trait among the community, but their brain was split into two hemispheres. They had 2 eyes, but their eyes themselves had 6 muscles that helped move their irises. Then there was their breathing system. They had a strange way of moving oxygen around their bodies with these things called lungs, sacks of flesh that expanded and diffused oxygen into their bloodstream, which was iron-based instead of copper like herself, and needed far less oxygen than the Krier themselves and many of the other species. In fact, their atmosphere only had 21% oxygen in it, 20% less than anyone else. It was insane and made Nera's elongated head spin. She shook her head as she stopped in front of the red airlock where she was meant to meet her guests. She could think about their crazy anatomy later. Right now, she needed to focus on presenting her work. She was quite proud of it as well. V should be nearly done showing them the lab. I should make a grand entrance. Nera clacked her mandibles together loudly to get the attention of their guests. Bree turned first, her 9 eyes facing in all directions on top of her fuzzy body. The humans, she thought they were called, turned afterwards and almost immediately jumped backwards, their eyes dilating to pinpoints. One of the 3 of them had placed an appendage at their hip, looking for something that wasn't there. That one had a thick bar of fur above their mouth, stark white and seemingly well-groomed. The fur on top of his head was also white, smoothed back and glistening in the light of the planet below and the lights above. "It's a xenomorph," one of them whispered, their gruff voice not translating well through the translator. One of them had turned entirely white, a seemingly younger human with a green suit on. He kind of looked like a cron leaf, his face entirely hairless, while his head was adorned with bright gold fur, muttering to the one next to him, "Listen, if I get face hugged, shoot me. Just shoot me." The one wearing green muttered to the one in gray, their face bright green. The one being spoken to was swallowing hard and shaking, possibly a fear response. He had less hair than his older companion, but had a small patch of fur on his chin and no fur on his head. Nera tilted her head and slowly clicked at them in a confused way, swiveling her elongated head almost entirely around before looking back at the humans. She hadn't known they could change color. Fascinating. "I do not know what a xenomorph is. I don't see anyone in the vicinity other than myself and my colleague here," she stated simply, watching their reaction. Their chests seemed to rise and fall slowly as they took a closer look at her. The older human with the fur above its mouth looked at her with predatory eyes, slowly gliding along her entire length, making her antenna stand on end. It wasn't a good sensation, and she was glad when it ended. "You're right. I apologize. You look very similar to a monster from one of our old horror movies, but you're very different." Nera rubbed her striking appendages together as she took several steps forward, towering over the humans. The young one in the green suit turned an even paler white as she did, taking several steps back himself. Strange. He could probably rip off her legs easily. How so? I don't want this to impact the demonstration. If I can alleviate any misunderstanding, I will, she said, gesturing to the other two. The older human seemed much more calm now, stroking the hair above his lip and looking up at her as she spoke. "Well, to start, your head is tubular, which is very much like said species. Nothing you can do about that. Then there's your back. You have biomechanical tubes poking out at about the right spots like they do, and your carapace is nearly pitch black," he stated matter-of-factly, extending a small grasping appendage as he counted off each similarity. Each one made the white human shake harder, his eyes never leaving her. "But you have mantis-like arms above your grasping appendages and a more lobster-like lower half, as well as pretty large mandibles over your mouth, and you have eyes which they don't have. So my own colleagues need to calm down and shape up." The human shouted the last line more at his companions rather than at Nera, both of them snapping to a more upright position. He nodded and turned back to her, extending an appendage towards her own. "I'm sorry about our conduct. It was a knee-jerk reaction. We were given a briefing on who we would be meeting, but in all honesty, I wasn't paying much attention to anything other than the mention of stealth ships." He made this soft, strange chuffing sound as he looked up at her, seemingly waiting for something. She looked down at him and simply stared, absorbing this information. So she was frightening to them and couldn't really do anything about it. Unfortunate, but maybe she would get to see more of those fascinating reactions. "What are you doing with your appendage?" she asked, pointing to it with her own manipulators. The human looked down at his, then to her, and kept his appendage held right there. "It's a handshake. It's a formal greeting from my species," he grunted back, leaning forward and taking her manipulator in his hand, which she assumed was called the term handshake, and moved it up and down like this. Nera slowly mimicked the movement until their appendages snapped, the older human's lips curling up and showing his teeth. It made her antenna twitch again, pulling her manipulator back to herself. "Interesting. Well, I'm Nera, the head scientist of research and development here at the station. You're here for a demonstration of our newest stealth technology, aren't you?" She clicked coyly, watching them as she skipped right ahead to the beginning of the presentation. The older human's eyes narrowed as the two younger ones smoothed their suits, the one in green no longer a pale white, the one in gray a more pink color now. "Yes, we are." "Strange way to jump into the conversation," he growled, the translator still having trouble picking up his voice. "Don't be a grumpy bastard, Todd. She's a scientist, not a damn door-to-door salesman. The eggheads at home are just as awkward," the one in green bluntly told the older human. Todd is what his name was, apparently. Nera was loving all this new information she was getting about the humans. Todd slowly looked back at the man in green without emoting, a grin plastered on the human in green as he grunted. "Fair enough. Guess I should cut her some slack." His chest expanded and shrank again before he flung his arm outward and gestured for Nera to move forward, or so she assumed. It was quite similar to the Vero's gesture of "get on with it." "All right, lead the way, Miss Nera." Nera excitedly turned and clicked twice towards Bree, who squealed back and hopped away. This was Nera's show, and Bree knew that. As she disappeared behind the airlock she had sauntered through, Nera turned towards the window and pulled out a datapad, tapping a few spots on its surface. "Well, it's a good thing we have this amazing view, isn't it? Great backdrop for some science," she exclaimed excitedly as 4 long ships started coming around the edge of the planet. They looked almost like spearheads with crescent wings sprouting from their back ends. The sharp tips pointed towards the front, their silvery surface sparkling in the light of the planet. One of the humans made a high-pitched sound beside her as the ship grew closer. "Well, I'll give you this. Your vessels are beautiful," the human in gray muttered, eyes finally looking away from her as his eyes locked onto the ship's. Todd seemed to stroke the fur above his lip again. Nera was starting to suspect it was a habit he had when he was thinking, and also appeared to be appreciating the ships. They slowly came to a stop several clicks away from the station, far enough away not to be affected by its gravitational pull. The grav generator did strange things to ships under a certain size when they got too close. "But I'm not seeing much stealth," Todd grunted, turning to Nera with an expectant look. She bounced up and down in agreement, her flared tail slapping the ground with light thunks. "Yes, their stealth modules are currently offline. I was hoping we could show off the rest of their abilities first. They are the first of their class built by my people, after all," she said mischievously. In all honesty, she just wanted to show off the work of her and her colleagues. They had all put their minds together for many rotations to make these ships, and that made her quite proud of her team. "What other features are you going to show off? I thought this whole trip was to see your stealth modules, not to see you show off." "I'm missing the BattleBot's final for this." Todd turned towards the one in green who had seemingly struck a nerve, walking over with heavy clanks coming from the metal floor as his much denser body put more stress on it. "Jeremy, let the lady show off her toys. You're already here. You can't miss your stupid show anymore." He struck the back of Jeremy's head, a pop sound coming from the impact as Jeremy rubbed the spot, wincing in pain and seemingly making a face. Todd looked at the human in gray. "Got anything to add, Walter?" he growled. Walter shook his head side to side hurriedly, raising his manipulating appendages up and waving them as well. "Nope, nothing, sir. I'd love to see the other features this lovely lady worked on," he answered back hurriedly, making Nera tilt her head curiously. These humans really were fascinating, and if she could, she'd study them all day. But she needed to continue. "Thank you, Todd. Well, we worked on quite a few things for these ships to do, like the new propulsion system." She tapped her appendage on her data pad, a buzzing coming from it as she connected her communicator to one of the ships outside, typing in something quickly. "Please move 30 clicks up at full speed." She let go of the button and watched as the furthest ship on the left's back end slowly turned downwards, almost swiveling like her own head. The ship shot upward suddenly, getting up to 30 clicks in only a few minutes. Todd let out a noise, the translator not quite knowing what to make of it. Nera turned and looked at him, her mandibles rubbing together as the ship came to a stop. "We've improved the movement speed, shortening the time from 8 time units to move 30 clicks to only 6 units. It was quite a bit of work." The gravitational force on the pilot was harsh until Bri was able to use a bit of her knowledge to improve the dampeners. Jeremy looked at Todd, who seemed to be silent, then to Walter, who was biting his lip with his teeth, another oddity of humans, but so was everyone's methods of eating. "You can't be serious," Jeremy seemed to say in utter disbelief. "What do you mean, Jeremy?" Nera asked, her emerald eyes shimmering as she also showed disbelief. The humans had to be impressed by this. She and her team had shaved 2 whole time units off their maneuvering time. "This isn't fast. It was like watching your ships move through molasses. Our ships would fly." Todd smacked Jeremy on the back of the head again, this time sounding much more painful. Even Nera flinched a bit as Jeremy hit the ground and hard. "Don't be an ass," was all Todd grunted before clearing his throat and nodding to Nera for her to continue. She was picking up on cues much better now, she hoped. They were very similar to other species, just all mixed together. "Well," she clicked, pushing the button on her datapad again, the buzz emanating from it again, as she connected to another ship. She didn't say anything out loud but sent them a message. "We have our new plasma cannons," she shouted proudly, her clicks ending as the next ship in line's underside slowly lowered a long barrel, slowly extending outwards as a bright rainbow light shot forwards, smashing into a small asteroid 10 clicks wide. It became red-hot slag, flaking off and entering the atmosphere of the planet below. They would safely burn up and dissipate. She had been pretty careful to have them target a smaller one. "Well, that was pretty cool," Walter said with a tight voice, nodding to himself. He raised an eyebrow as the barrel slowly folded in on itself and vanished back into the underside of the ship. "What? No encore?" Nera gave him a disbelieving look, her mandibles spread apart and her blade-like appendages hanging down, the tips of them resting on the ground. "No, they need time to recharge. They use quite a bit of energy, and using them too fast could have them melt your own ship." She pointed towards the shiny surface of the underside, some of the plating having been burned by the cannon. Really, Jeremy commented. Todd gave him a scowl, which shut him up very quickly. But this time, Walter jumped into the conversation instead, continuing where he left off. "That's it. We could have blown that asteroid to smithereens, and then some with our ship. And we have a diplomatic ship that's pretty underpowered." Todd smacked him on the back of the head, seemingly a habit of Todd's. These three must be very familiar with one another if they were so comfortable showing off their strength and willingness to use force around her. "If you say another word, I'm going to wax your entire body and make you go to your wedding that way," he muttered, Walter turning pale like Jeremy had earlier. You wouldn't." Walter's face was deadly serious as he spluttered. Walter quickly fell silent as Todd gestured for her to continue again. Nera was starting to think nothing was going to impress them. "Well, besides the stealth modules," she hoped. "I suppose we should continue." She clicked slowly, pushing the communications button yet again. This time, the next ship's wings slowly folded in on themselves until they were nothing but a spearhead floating in space. In a flash of light, the silvery form stretched like a rubber band until they disappeared. All that was left behind was a puff of silvery gas where it had been before. "Was that an FTL jump? I thought you couldn't jump that close because of the warp bubble." Walter, Jeremy, and even Todd seemed impressed this time, each of their faces contorted into different expressions. Yes, that was the reaction Nera had been looking for. It was gloriously fascinating to examine their faces, the lines of their skin doing things her body simply never could. "You are correct. The warp bubbles usually would rip the ship apart if you were using any other FTL drive, but implementing some of the same principles as our grab generator, we've managed to make short-distance jumps not only possible but cost-effective." She tapped something into her data pad as a silvery shard flashed by the station, the ship that had just vanished reappearing a few clicks away from one of the others, its wings folded back out as it maneuvered its way back into place. Another puff of silvery gas where it had appeared again. "That's actually amazing. We've been looking for something like that. The higher-ups have been complaining about needing to be halfway to the Kuiper Belt before jumping out or in," Todd commented, his blue eyes gleaming with interest. Nera's antenna waved up and down happily as she rubbed her manipulating appendages together, a soft shaft emanating from them as her carapace rubbed together. She had thought the plasma cannon would have been their favorite so far, but this was wonderful. "Yes, we are also looking for a solution to that problem. I'm happy to have finally caught your interest. I suppose we should get on to the main show then." She excitedly guided her appendage upwards on the data pad, the ship shimmering as their stealth modules began to power up slowly. They vanished from her view front to back, their forms invisible. "So when were you going to activate the module?" "The ships got pretty flashy there for a moment," Todd asked, merrily shattering Nera's train of thought. She looked at Todd, a merry look on his face as he stared out the window. No, they couldn't see them. It shouldn't be possible." "Yeah, I can kind of see a slight shimmer around the ships now, though. Maybe they're powering up." "Would make sense, probably draws a lot of power or is heavy on the onboard computers." Jeremy had leaned towards Walter, his tone much more uplifted now. his appendages stuffed into some folds of cloth around his waist as his eyes also stayed locked onto the spot the ships had been. I don't know, but yeah, I see it too. Kind of like a thin layer of glass that's wobbling around the body. Kind of cool looking, Walter answered, his eyes following the same spot. Nera was in disbelief. The camouflage had been perfect. Even the high-yield scanning equipment hadn't spotted the ships when they had tested them. I know you must be playing, though. What was it the pamphlet said? A prank on me. The ships have completely vanished. She clicked shakily, barely getting the words past her mandibles. What? No, they're right there. You've got to be kidding me, Todd said in disbelief, pointing out the window, towards where the ships had vanished. Nera slowly typed into the datapad with her appendage. Todd's face frowned as his fingers slowly raised upwards, following something she couldn't see. Doctor, please, we aren't fools. They're right there. Jeremy joined in, pointing at the same spot. Nera's head was spinning, her carapace tight, and she could barely see her surroundings. She collapsed onto the floor heavily, her body leaning against the cold wall as she looked at all three of the humans in front of her. The stealth modules are active. She turned the datapad, showing the status of the ships, pointing towards the green slider with her appendage. All three of their faces had the same expression, a slight jaw drop with squinting eyes. No, there's no way. You're messing with us, aren't you? Jeremy stated furiously, throwing his hands up in the air. He was scowling now. It reminded her of Todd quite a lot, actually. He had the same folds of skin around his eyes when he scowled. You're messing with us. You have to be. There's no way your stealth amounts to a shiny ship with a kind of cool shimmer. There's no way I'm missing battle bots for this shitty stealth, he ranted as Nera slowly turned the datapad, showing the status of the ships, pointing towards the green slider with her appendage. The human perspective. As Nera regained her composure, she studied the humans' expressions closely. She had never encountered a species that could see through their stealth technology. It was supposed to be perfect. The humans' casual demeanor and their ability to spot the shimmer in the cloaked ships were both fascinating and alarming. Dr. Nera, Todd said, his tone now more serious, we genuinely can see the ships. Your technology is impressive, but it seems our visual perception is uniquely suited to detecting even the slightest distortions. Nera's mandibles clicked nervously. This is unexpected. Our cloaking technology is designed to be undetectable by all known species' senses and instruments. How is it that you can see them? Jeremy, still fuming but slightly calmer, explained, our eyes are incredibly sensitive to changes in light and texture. We can detect patterns and anomalies that most species wouldn't notice. It's an evolutionary trait from our home planet, where our survival often depended on spotting predators and prey that blended into their surroundings. Walter added, we've also developed advanced training techniques to enhance our natural abilities. Soldiers and explorers are trained to spot the slightest irregularities, which is probably why we can see through your cloaking. Nera's curiosity overrode her initial shock. This could be a significant breakthrough in our understanding of interspecies visual capabilities. Would you be willing to collaborate with us on refining our technology? Todd nodded. Of course, we're here to learn and share knowledge. Your stealth technology is still incredibly advanced, and with a few adjustments, it could be even more effective. Nera felt a wave of relief. Thank you. Your insights are invaluable. Let's proceed with the demonstration, and perhaps you can provide feedback on how we can improve. The humans agreed, and Nera continued with the presentation. She showed them the ship's advanced navigation systems, the enhanced communication arrays, and the powerful defensive shields. Each feature was met with a mix of admiration and constructive criticism from the humans. As they concluded the demonstration, Nera felt a renewed sense of purpose. This unexpected encounter had opened up new possibilities for collaboration and mutual advancement. The humans' unique abilities and perspectives were an asset she hadn't anticipated, but now she saw their potential to drive innovation. Collaboration begins. Over the next few weeks, Nera and her team worked closely with the humans to refine their stealth technology. The humans' ability to detect even the slightest imperfections in the cloaking system proved to be a game-changer. They suggested modifications to the cloaking field's frequency and the materials used in the ship's hull, making it even harder to detect. The collaboration was intense but rewarding. Nera found herself constantly amazed by the humans' ingenuity and problem-solving skills. Despite their initial misunderstanding, they quickly built a strong rapport, fueled by a shared passion for exploration and discovery. One day, as they were testing the latest modifications, Todd approached Nera. "You know, Doctor, this project has made me rethink a lot about our capabilities. It's not just about technology. It's about understanding and adapting to each other's strengths." Nera clicked her mandibles in agreement. "Yes, Todd. This experience has shown me that true advancement comes from collaboration and learning from one another. We've made more progress together than we ever could have alone." As they continued their work, the bond between the humans and the alien scientists grew stronger. They celebrated each breakthrough, knowing that their combined efforts were pushing the boundaries of what was possible. A new threat. Just as the project was nearing completion, a new threat emerged. An unknown alien species, drawn by the advanced technology being developed, attacked the Spock station. Their ships, sleek and deadly, began bombarding the station with powerful energy weapons. Nera and her team scrambled to respond. The humans, with their combat training and tactical expertise, took the lead in organizing the defense. Todd, Jeremy, and Walter coordinated with the station's security forces, directing counterattacks and shoring up defenses. Nera, despite her initial fear, found herself working alongside the humans with a newfound determination. She coordinated the efforts of the scientists and engineers, ensuring that critical systems remained operational and that injured personnel received medical attention. As the battle raged, it became clear that the invaders were after the stealth technology. Nera realized that their only hope was to use the very technology they had been developing. She and the humans quickly devised a plan to activate the stealth modules on the station itself, rendering it invisible to the attackers. It was a risky move, but with no other options, they proceeded. As the cloaking field enveloped the station, the alien ships suddenly lost their target. Confused and disoriented, they ceased their attack and began retreating. The station remained cloaked until the attackers were well out of range. When it was safe, they deactivated the field and assessed the damage. While there were injuries and some structural damage, they had managed to repel the invaders. Todd, breathing heavily but triumphant, turned to Nera. "We did it. Your technology saved us." Nera felt a deep sense of pride and gratitude. "No, Todd. We did it. Together." Strengthening alliances. The attack on the Spock station had far-reaching consequences. News of the human-alien collaboration and their successful defense against the invaders spread quickly throughout the galaxy. Other species, intrigued and inspired by their story, reached out to form alliances and share knowledge. The Galactic Council, recognizing the potential for interspecies cooperation, invited Nera, Todd, and their teams to present their findings and experiences. The council chambers were filled with representatives from countless worlds, all eager to learn from their example. As Nera and Todd took the stage, they shared their journey, the initial misunderstandings, the breakthroughs, and the ultimate triumph over adversity. Their story was a testament to the power of unity and the limitless possibilities that arose from embracing diversity. The council members listened intently, their expressions a mix of admiration and curiosity. When Nera concluded her presentation, a wave of applause filled the chamber. The head of the Galactic Council, a wise and venerable elder, addressed the assembly. "Today, we have witnessed the true strength of our galaxy. It is not in our individual technologies or abilities, but in our willingness to come together, to learn from one another, and to face challenges as one. The collaboration between the Spock station and the humans is a beacon of hope and a model for the future." Following the presentation, the Council announced a new initiative to foster interspecies collaboration. Research, grants, joint missions, and exchange programs were established, encouraging species to work together towards common goals. The future of collaboration. With the support of the Galactic Council, Nera and Todd's teams continued their work, now joined by scientists and experts from across the galaxy. Their efforts led to significant advancements in stealth technology, propulsion systems, and defensive capabilities. The Spock station became a hub of innovation and cooperation, attracting brilliant minds from every corner of the galaxy. The spirit of collaboration extended beyond technological advancements. Cultural exchanges flourished, and friendships were forged that transcended species and backgrounds. Nera and Todd's bond deepened as they navigated the challenges and triumphs of their shared mission. They had become not only colleagues but true friends, united by their commitment to a brighter future for all. One evening, as they observed the bustling activity of the station, Todd turned to Nera. "We've come a long way since that first day, haven't we?" Nera clicked her mandibles in agreement. "Indeed, Todd. We've shown that when we work together, there are no limits to what we can achieve." As the stars glittered outside the station's windows, they knew that their journey was far from over. The galaxy was vast and filled with endless possibilities. Together, they would continue to explore, innovate, and inspire, carrying the torch of unity and collaboration into the future.